Hi, it's Ken. In this video, I'll share with you how to raise your frequency and restore energy in your body and mind, no matter what's going on in your body, in your life, or in the world at large. And I'm going to do this through a combination of teaching with words as well as a deep spiritual experience. So I'll be closing our time together in this video with a healing session where I'm working with you energetically so you can directly experience the things that I'll be sharing with you. At the close of this video, I'm going to provide a link to the audio download of this video, plus some additional healing resources, which are all free, so be sure to stay tuned. If you're new to this channel, I invite you to subscribe at any time by clicking the little icon, my logo, in the lower right-hand corner of the video. And when you do, please make sure you click the bell to be notified. If this video resonates with you, I invite you to also give it a thumbs up. And of course, I welcome your comments and your questions and a discussion which can unfold in the comments below. There are really three approaches for raising your frequency and restoring energy in your body effectively to heal your body, your mind, and your emotions, and really bring your entire life into deep resonance that I'd like to explore with you today. And I just want to say that everything that I'm going to be sharing with you is focused on supporting you and uncovering who you really are underneath everything else on every level of your being, energetically, physically, emotionally, and more. This is available to you without holding an intention or focusing your energy in a particular way. With that, let's dive in. And I actually want to see if I can sketch a little bit to share some of the ideas that I want to share with you. The first idea is just an understanding, I think, of how we might relate to ourselves and to other people. And so I'm just going to put the sun up in the sky here. And we'll put one person here. And let's put another person here. And these two people really just represent you or me and everyone else. And let's say that the sun in the sky represents not just the sun, but also the direction that many of us relate to when we think about the divine. And there are other ways to refer to the divine, right? We could say, use the word God, or we could say universe or source or nothing or emptiness. There are lots of different ways to say this. And from my perspective, these are all the same. So I really invite you to substitute what works best for you, no matter what word I'm using or name I'm using on that energy. So the way that we tend to interact with each other and ourselves, sort of as our default state as we're going through our lives, is that we think we're separate from each other and also separate from God. And to a large degree, and you may have an experience of this, we also find ourselves to be separate from, or have an experience of being separate from ourselves. And let me see if I can just draw an arrow like this. And what I mean by that is we tend to look at someone else and say, or a group of people and say, they are not me, or I am not God, or even more, right? God may have forgotten about me or abandoned me, or where is God in my life? And this dynamic is especially challenging because oftentimes we feel disconnected from the truth of who we are, from who we actually are at a deeper core level. And this can happen in all different phases of life. It can happen in our teenage years, in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and older. And sometimes we have an epiphany where we realize, oh my goodness, I don't feel very connected to who I am, or who I used to think that I was isn't so much who I think I am anymore, or who am I? And so one of the key ways that we have to raise our frequency and restore our energy on every level of our being is to pierce separation. And I'm just going to use initials because my handwriting is a little bit special. But if we think about the plan here, our first step is to pierce separation. And we're actually going to go through a process here that I'm going to share with you that I call divine connecting breath. And that's going to be really at the beginning of the session, of the transmission, that we'll get started with here in just a few minutes once I've reviewed the other two concepts that we're going to be exploring experientially in the transmission. So the first thing to raise our frequency is to pierce separation. And something really profound begins to happen there. But rather than talk a lot about it, I want you to be able to have the experience of it directly. So there's something else that starts to happen when we engage in our lives, right? We can either engage at the level of our mind and be thinking, right? Or we can, and I'm trying to draw a heart here. We can engage at the level of feeling, right? And feeling could be an emotional state that we're having an experience of, or it could be a feeling as in I feel a sense of connection, which isn't so much an emotion per se. It might be very difficult actually to describe how we go about feeling that, but let's relate that to our hearts. And so just the icon I think I want to use for this is just we're having thoughts. Thinking is going on in our minds. Feeling is going on in our hearts. And down here at the level of the hips is what I would call being. And being is not so much about thinking or feeling, although thinking and feeling can take place in being. And there's a progression here, which is to say, when we go through a process of what I want to call soul embodiment, where we actually support our souls coming home all the way down into our bodies, traveling down into the hips. When we come into the hips, we have this experience of restoration of resonance in our bodies. It can lead to spontaneous healing. Many people have referred to it as an experience, a radical experience of raising the frequency of their body or their minds. And really profound things begin to happen when we go through soul embodiment. And I just want to try to use a picture here to describe soul embodiment at a deeper level so you can understand it. So if we think about a ship in three parts, right? The first part is the mast and the sail. And let's, my art is interesting, isn't it? Let's think about the mast and the sail as related to the mind. It's about thinking, okay? That's embodiment in the head. And if we think about embodying down to the heart, here's what I want to say. If we're embodied in the mind, the challenge here is, what good is the mast and the sail on its own, right? If we take the mast and the sail out to sea and just let it go in the sea, the question becomes, what can we do with that mast and sail? It just capsizes, right? There's nothing to hold it up. There's nothing to support the mind. And so embodiment at the level of the mind, although it animates the thinking resources that we all have available to us, it doesn't actually do much to us or for us as it relates to encountering the winds of opportunity or the winds of challenge. And really, at a thinking level, because the mast and the sail don't do much on their own, thinking doesn't really do much on its own to raise frequency and restore energy on any level of the body or the mind or emotions and so on. And so if we think about the next part of a boat, And let's just call this the hull, or what most people would think of as the entire boat. Now, if we plant, that is to say, if we're embodied in the mind and now down into the heart, if we plant the mast into the boat, it looks to us as though, well, here's a boat, right? Here is something that can go places. And there's actually a lot of really incredible research out there that talks about the power of the heart. And so getting in touch with the heart and syncing the heart up with the mind can be very, very powerful. But I want to point something out to you. If you engage this boat in this configuration and put it out to sea, realize that the winds of opportunity that begin to blow in our lives, challenges or opportunity, any kind of wind that we encounter, physical challenges, things going on out in the world, this boat will capsize. Because once the wind starts blowing into the sails, the boat is top heavy. It will tip over. And so the last component of the boat, which isn't even visible unless a boat is lifted out on land, is the keel. And the keel sometimes looks a little bit like this. And we could think of the keel as a counterweight. That is the one thing that allows these other two components to now perform. So, and the keel is analogous to being embodied down in the hips. So now the boat goes out on the sea and the winds of opportunity or the winds of challenge begin blowing, and this boat begins to perform in a very different way. It's able to handle the winds, and it actually is able to move through those challenges and those opportunities and take advantage of those situations in a very powerful way, in a way that it simply can't when it's just the mast and the sail, and in a way that it looks as though it should be able to with the hull and the mast and the sail, but in a way that it really is not capable of until the keel is connected. That is to say, we are embodied in our hips. And if you think about your body just for a moment, consider this. Your mind, your brain sits atop your heart, which sits atop your hips. So even from a physiology standpoint, much less an energetic one, this begins to make a little bit of sense. And you might be thinking, well, what does it mean to actually, for this boat to perform as it was meant to? But first, let me just say this. So the second thing that we're going to do is soul embodiment. S-E, soul embodiment. So the first thing we're going to do is pure separation. So we're going to get rid of this illusion that we are separate from one another and separate from the divine and separate from ourselves. And we're not going to do this by thinking about anything. We're going to do a guided meditation. Then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to do some soul embodiment so that our souls can come down into our bodies fully, into your body fully. And the impact of that is going to feel like you are raising the frequency and restoring energy at a profound level. And then there's a third thing we're going to do together. And it's a little bit difficult to talk about with words, but I can continue the picture here and try to explain it in the form of a picture. So let's just say there's all this stuff here. Let's call it dirt and rocks and sand. And although we tend to associate the divine or source above us, and you may be familiar with meditations, guided meditations, and other work where you're drawing that energy in through the top of your head, through the crown of your head, in reality, it's my belief and certainly my experience, and I've received a number of downloads, and you can read more about this. I've written a lot about this in my first book, and there are a number of other resources that are available, which I'll link to in the description, so you can read more about this and learn more about this if you're interested in this. But it's my experience actually that we are excavating down to uncover what is already there. So we're not trying to ascend or rise up. We're in the process of descending, of uncovering what is already there. Instead of trying to become something more than we are, we're dropping down into the vessel and the expression of our divine presence called your body, your mind, your heart, and all the resources the divine expresses through you and as you and in you on every level of your being. And so, but the challenge is, how do we excavate down through this experience, and what is it that we're looking for? What are we seeking? And I believe we're seeking what we could call, let me see if I can just draw a picture of a treasure box. I believe we're seeking this thing that feels and looks and that we sense is a divine treasure. And this treasure, rather than being up here beyond us, that we need to transcend the limitations of our lives, we actually have this opportunity to descend down and uncover that experience within us. Nothing needs to be installed. Nothing needs to be done to us to fix. There is no problem, really. It's more about uncovering an experience that's already there, available within you. And this is what we're going to do in the third part of I'm going to put the 3 over here. And I guess you could call it a divine transmission or a healing session. Okay, they're just one and the same, 2 ways to refer to the same thing. And again, I could spend a lot of time trying to describe it to you, and that's available in other resources, which are linked below. But today, what I want to do is actually share the experience with you. And I will just say this by way of description. In a healing session or in a divine transmission, I believe that is, or the language that I have to describe it is, this is how God or the divine universe source expresses through me. It's not something that I do on my own or that I do in separation. In fact, it doesn't even relate to an intention or any kind of thinking. It doesn't relate at all to a feeling, although there are feelings associated with it. It relates to me being in a being state and witnessing you and working with you energetically. And since there's no way for me to know the particulars about your life, since I'm on this side of the camera and you're on the other side of the phone or tablet or computer that you're watching this video on, you can rest assured I don't know anything about you. And yet I'm going to work with you energetically if you'd like me to. And the way to do that is just to continue watching the video. Now, I will say this, before we go into these experiences, it's really important to say this. Please do not operate a motor vehicle or heavy equipment of any sort during this or any time that we are in transmission together. There are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, a great many of my students, and I've been doing this since really January of 2008, so for a number of years now, a great many of my students and clients have described an experience where they think they're going to sleep. And in fact, they're not going to sleep. I believe they're dropping down to a deeper level because their mind, their thinking mind, their conscious mind cannot stay or aware. It can't stay with the energetic work that's going on. It's just too deep. And the thing is, we just never know when that's going to happen. I mean, I have been in session with people before, group and individual, where at a moment's notice, we're having a conversation and the next moment they're gone. And they'll come back. I mean, gone as in they think they've gone to sleep, to be clear. They'll come back at the end of the transmission. They might hear a few words as I'm wrapping things up. So please don't operate a motor vehicle or heavy equipment of any sort. If you're listening to the audios, it might be more tempting to do that while you're driving or doing something else. Please don't do that. It really isn't safe to do that. And the other reason not to do that is that you have an opportunity to have an experience in your being, in your body. And there may be thoughts in your mind and feelings that come up over time around this as well. And it's really an opening to this treasure that is already within you, that maybe you've had experiences of before, maybe you've had deep and profound experiences before. And if the experiences of other people that have been in transmission are any indication, then it's likely that you'll have an even deeper experience of this treasure, whatever we want to call it, and the byproducts of that treasure that begin expressing spontaneously, which include things like spontaneous healing on many different levels, an experience of spontaneous joy, restoration of relationships, all sorts of extraordinary things. Truly, it is bordering on, I guess, what we could refer to as a miraculous dynamic. And I'm clear that dynamic does not originate within me. It originates within the divine, within you, and within us all. And this is an opportunity for you to have that experience. So I know you're watching a video or listening to the audio of this video, and I'd like to make the transition now into the transmission, into our time together. And there are going to be some things that I say that might be familiar to you, some words that I use. And if they're not, don't get hung up on the words, because the words are not the method of conveying what is happening to you. In fact, there is no real method of conveying. I'm not sending something to you. Something within you, the divine treasure within, is being enlivened within you. And that's happening because the divine expresses in me in a certain way. And I just want to share one more thing about this. There's really amazing work that we can do in the world with regard to our intention, thinking, and the combination of thinking and feeling can be really, really profound. The things that I'm describing move us to an even deeper level, a deeper level of efficacy, a deeper level of tapping into our divine power. This isn't something that we send to another person. It's something that we excavate and uncover that is enlivened within us. And so I know sometimes there are natural disasters in the world, or there's a loved one who's struggling with their health, or perhaps their health is declining, or whatever the circumstances are. And I'm not trying to dismiss the circumstances. I'm simply saying we all encounter many different experiences of dissonance. And if you're interested in supporting them in an experience of their deeper divine treasure, the treasure within, I really recommend that you share this video with them so that they can have the direct experience for themselves. There's nothing for you to send to them. It's already within them. It's simply available for them to uncover, just as it is for you to uncover and experience. Okay, that having been said, I think the only thing left to do is to get in a comfortable position. I recognize it's a video. I'm going to close my eyes because that's how I work. And generally, I don't work standing up, but I'm going to today because that's where the camera is. And I'll just tune in and we'll follow here. And the first thing I want to do is just begin with a little bit of breathing. So I think it's important to get into a comfortable position, because this is going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to take hours, but it's also not a 5 or a 10-minute process. We're going to take a little bit more time with this today, because I really want to support you in that deeper experience of who you really are, and of supporting you in truly raising your frequency and restoring energy on all these different levels of your interior and your exterior life, the interior body and so on, that interior dynamic. And if you continue with this, what ends up happening is, as we excavate down, the treasure becomes exposed. It begins to integrate. It integrates into the body, into the mind, and it eventually shines out into every part of life. And the way that we can do that, the way we can support that, is to do this again and again and again and again. It really is about opening up to that deeper experience of who we are deep below everything else. Whatever's going on in your life, this is available to you now. So I invite you to close your eyes. Begin, if it's comfortable for you, breathing in and out through your nostrils. And also, if it's comfortable for you, you can sit or lying down, whatever's best for you, with your palms towards the sky. It's a wonderful receiving position. And let's take a deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before in this day, all the way out to the count of 8. And I'm just moving my hand at the tempo that I recommend, if you can, that you breathe at. But whatever tempo you breathe at is perfect. In fact, whatever is unfolding for you is perfect. whatever your experience is, whatever is unfolding viscerally in your body, unfolding in your awareness, visually, even though your eyes may be closed, and that intuitive screen. It's a wonderful way to center. We'll do divine connecting breath here in just a minute. And another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since your birth, all the way out to the count of 8. And yes, you can release those challenges, those experiences and expressions of dissonance on whatever level, mentally, emotionally, physically, energetically, in the outward or the inner expression of life. But I also encourage you to let go of everything if you can with your breath. For what you're doing is opening up to a new, fresh experience of who you really are, beneath the noise, beneath this sand, beneath these artifacts of the illusion of separation. You get an idea of the tempo. I'm going to see if I can just let my hands be quiet now. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since the inception of your soul, all the way out to the count of 8. And in your mind's eye, by that I mean in your imagination or on your intuitive screen, you don't need to project a lot if you're imagining anything. The images will appear or not, and either way is fine. Just follow the words that I'm sharing with you. And if you feel yourself beginning to drop out, that's okay. You don't have to hold on. Nothing that I'm saying is all that important. It's simply a way of supporting your mind in dropping the illusion of separation so that the experience of your innate connection can begin opening up at the level of your heart and at the level of your being. So in your mind's eye, you might notice a cue of breath. 1 unit of breath, followed by another, and another, and another. And notice as you breathe in each unit of breath, it is replaced at the end of the cue, at the back of the cue, and all those units of breath just move forward. And there's no criteria or condition as you breathe in the breath. The breath is there to serve you fully, no matter who you are, no matter what's been done to you, what you've done to others, the life you've lived. None of that matters in this moment. How well you feel, emotionally or mentally or physically, how much money you have in the bank or don't have in the bank, it doesn't matter. The breath is supporting you. And notice as you breathe in through the nostrils, there's a movement to the breath. And as you see in your mind's eye, perhaps intuitively, there's a color beginning to infuse itself into the cue. It might be static. It might be fixed, or it might be dynamic, changing all the time. And if you're imagining a color, I just invite you to select a color that's maybe not normally present in your physical body, except perhaps in your eyes. And so as you breathe in and out, with the next breath in, be with the breath from the perspective of that color now. In through the nostrils, up towards the crown, and then down into the lungs. Now, sitting in the lungs, just be and notice as you continue breathing, that color begins infusing itself into the lungs. And the color really just shows you visually or intuitively the pathway for the breath through the body. So you'll notice if we move time forward just a little bit faster, gently, just intuitively, we don't have to really do anything to make that happen. It's just going to happen. You can see or notice or feel or sense on some level that color coating the interior of your lungs. And then as time moves by, it actually moves through that membrane into your bloodstream and then throughout the entirety of your body and then into each and every cell of your body. And so we can make this very simple conclusion, a statement really. The breath is becoming you and you are becoming the breath. And notice how that makes sense intellectually as you're thinking, because of course, yes, oxygen, lungs, bloodstream, sure, that makes sense. But also notice perhaps there's a sensation in your body or a resonance intuitively that is saying yes on some level. Again, if you don't feel it, that's okay, no problem. Everything that is unfolding is perfect. You're not doing anything wrong, and there's no right way to do this. It's just unfolding perfectly for you right now. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. And as you gently reorient your perspective from the inside of your lungs, perhaps to perceiving the cue of breath again, you might, still with your eyes closed, you might notice in your mind's eye, the cue of breath is drawing breath ultimately from the breath of the planet. Not just in the space where you are as we're sharing this time together, but that space in turn draws from a bigger area. Perhaps it's a geographic region where you are or live right now, or perhaps it's the plane you're on as you're listening to this, or the ship at sea, or wherever you are, the breath of that area. And then there's the breath of the planet. You could think of it as one breath of the planet, surrounding the entirety of the planet. One unit of breath. And from that singular unit of breath, the breath of your cue in front of you is served. And notice, it's not just true for you, it's true for everyone. Your neighbor, your neighbor's neighbor, someone at a great distance. In fact, not just one person or a particular person, but everyone in your region, on your continent, your hemisphere, and indeed the planet. And by your breath, you are directly connected to them. For the breath of the planet serves you and them. And it's not just one person or even everyone who is breathing today. It is everyone who has ever breathed this breath of the planet and whoever will. For time and space are an illusion. However compelling, By your breath, you are connected to all these people. Sometimes a thought might come up in the mind, but I don't want to be connected with these people, or there's somebody who's not doing something I agree with, or they're behaving in a way that doesn't feel loving or kind, or they're doing horrible things or taking people's lives. But the thing is, the breath is stripped of all that. That is something they are struggling with. Some dynamic around the illusion of separation, I want to suggest, that is playing out in their life. But it is not conveyed to you by the breath. Your connection by the breath does not share their struggle, their challenge, their anger, their beliefs. You still have sovereignty over your own space and how you perceive things. This is simply a way of recognizing there is a connection even by the breath. And notice the breath of the planet doesn't just serve people, it serves everything. The animals, the insects, the plants, the water, the fish, the rocks, the dirt, everything. And so we can say, with each breath you are connected to everyone and everything, above, upon, and within the planet. And as you continue breathing, you may even feel yourself breathing by and for and of the planet itself. For this connection is essential and intimate, not reliant on your awareness. It is all of the time. And notice over time, as you continue breathing, it's not just the breath of the planet, but the breath of the planet expands to become the breath of the cosmos. And through that, you are connected to every instance of consciousness, whether sentient or non-sentient. Each and every expression of source, of the divine, including that energy that animates or expresses through each and every instance, the divine itself. So we can say, with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything in the cosmos, including the divine itself. Perhaps you perceive in your mind's eye the divine at a great distance initially, a light traveling towards you with each breath you draw in, getting closer and closer, perhaps eventually close enough that you can perceive those twin frequencies which express themselves as the divine, the frequency of the divine itself and the frequency of perfect health, not just health as we understand it physically, emotionally, and otherwise, perfect health in every iteration and expression beyond our comprehension. These two intertwine such that there is no separating one from the other. And eventually, perhaps that light, you can feel it as it connects into you, perhaps initially at your nostrils and then instantaneously through every aspect of your being, known and unknown, that feeling of resonance spreading throughout your body. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The invitation extended to each of the smallest aspects of you by that light, be it a waveform or a particle. The invitation to come return to your natural state of resonance and alignment. And as that resonance spreads, those artifacts of dissonance gathering at that universal drain. For whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug. I'll do the same. Let's begin. When the soul disembodies, it does so because it encounters a dynamic of dissonance, of whatever sort. A trauma, a wound, something other than resonance in the body, in the mind, in your life. And when it disembodies, it begins disconnecting from the base of your torso and moves back up, disembodies up through the torso towards the top of the head. Whatever else we might be able to do as human beings, we're quite adept at thinking. And so oftentimes that disembodiment stops in the mind where thoughts continue, but the mind can be spinning. It can lead to a sense of feeling ungrounded, disconnected, anxious, depressed, and so on. Many other artifacts of disembodiment. This is not to diminish or minimize or replace the explanation for the source of these things from the perspective of Western or Eastern medicine. Simply my observation and witnessing a great many people over time in disembodiment, anxiety and anger, a low feeling of depression, a lack of presence, and many other byproducts of disembodiment begin to express. Whereas when we're embodied, these things seem to simply fade away as we connect in to the deep experience of who we are. And so, as I support you energetically in embodying, the invitation, the opportunity is to feel fully whatever is coming up for you, emotionally, physically, and so on. For through your embodied soul, that is the individuated expression of the one, of source, of the divine, now expressing as you, the divine treasure expressing through your body. As that treasure descends, as your energy descends and animates every part of your being, not just the truth of who you are is animated, but also those aspects that are not who you really are. That is to say, those experiences of dissonance on whatever level. And when you allow yourself to feel those things fully, to express them and feel them physically, emotionally, and otherwise, as you are being supported and witnessed in your embodiment, they are transmuted. They are burnt up completely, consumed by the presence of the embodied divine. And so as I support you energetically in embodying your soul, recognize this movement, like so many others, is really an illusion. We are already fully embodied. We are already fully integrated. And yet, from the perspective of separation, of being disconnected or separate from the divine, each other, and ourselves, we can have this sensation, this experience of transmuting traumas, those things we are not, that we may more fully experience and express who we really are, who you really are, as an undistorted expression and extension of the divine by whatever name. So I'm just going to use a very simple process here as I work with you energetically. And the process simply relates to calling out numbers as reference points, the 7 primary chakras. Keep in mind, soul embodiment is not exclusively about the chakras. It's about the soul animating and embodying and integrating on every level of your being. The chakras are a wonderful reference point if you're familiar with them, and if you're not, it doesn't matter. The words do not matter. The experience of what is unfolding does. And I can feel my hands are buzzing, my feet are buzzing. It may mean that in your body there's an experience of physical resonance. It's not because I'm pulling a string, though. It is the embodied divine enlivened within you. And as the witness, I have this experience. This is how God expresses through me, where my hands and feet buzz as you integrate and embody at a deeper level. There are other meanings to the buzzing. We don't need to address them right now. Let's just have the experience. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I really encourage you to drop all intention or focus and simply be in the experience. It may not make sense right now, but eventually it will. When we hold intention, it's like a stop sign to the universe, to source, to the divine. That stop sign is saying, I've got this covered. I need to tell you what to do. But when we just open up and let go, who you really are begins erupting through your being on every level, physically, energetically, emotionally, and otherwise. And all the resources of that undistorted expression of divinity as you begin expressing. These resources are things beyond our mind's ability to understand or even comprehend. Yet the system of your vessel, of your human being, your body, your mind, and so on, it is built to express these. And those expressions of resonance just begin spontaneously expressing. Whatever's happening for you is perfect. It is unfolding in a way that is supporting you in what is needed right now, on whatever level that is most needed within you. At least for today, rather than many words focused on dropping below, down into that treasure beneath the sand, beneath the illusion of separation, I just want to support you in experiencing that with as few words as possible. If for a moment you imagine in your mind's eye sitting next to a river or a stream in your locality, or one you're familiar with at some point in your life. If you sit and look at the stream, it flows downhill of its own accord. And you might think, well, I'm going to get involved and I'm going to hold an intention that the river flow downhill. And lo and behold, the river flows downhill. And if you drop that intention, The river still flows downhill. Even if you turn your back on the river, still the river is flowing. If you walk away and forget of the river and the experience, that sense of connection and peace that you feel sitting next to the river, the joy that spontaneously arises, still the river is flowing. Just as it is with your breath. For with each breath, the divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. With each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything in the cosmos, including that energy which underwrites everything else, the divine, a light perhaps at a great distance, drawing closer with each breath, until eventually you can perceive on whatever level those twin frequencies intertwine such that there is no separating one from the other. That light eventually connecting in and extending an invitation to each aspect of you on every level, known and unknown. Come, return to your natural state of alignment and resonance. The river is flowing. Those artifacts of dissonance gathering at the drain and falling away. You can, if you like, with your intention, send that off to the sun to be transmuted, or you can remember the river is flowing and simply recognize even the idea that something is transforming within you is an illusion. You are simply uncovering the truth of who you are. The veil is lifting. The experience of the frequency being raised, perhaps expressing already in every aspect of your being. The restoration of resonance in the body, the mind, and in every inner and outer expression of life eventually is inevitable as you support the integration and experience of what is real within you, for the river is flowing. What a relief to set aside intention and mental gymnastics for the sake of effecting a change in your life. Instead, you are being invited to the hips. Thinking and feeling are subordinated to the experience of being. And the experience of being underlies every other aspect of you. And the being that is available here now is the being of the raw, undistorted expression of divine light shining in, through, and as you on every level. Not because I say it is, not because I have held any intention I have not. Because it is a fact. It is available in experience. The river is flowing. The river is flowing. The river is flowing. Whatever is unfolding in your awareness or your experience, something deeper, something more complete of who you are is available, not because you are not enough, but because as you let go, the divine floods in and expresses more completely through you on every level of your being, more completely, again and again and again. Not because there's more to do, but because as you let go, as you drop the facade of holding control, of being in charge, You are liberated to experience who and what you really are. And the more you release the idea or the feeling of what you think that means, positive or negative, the more completely the divine expresses on every level of your being, because this is who you really are. This higher frequency is the expression of the embodied divine being you, within you. And we have barely begun to scratch the surface. It's important for us to complete the experience before we wrap up. And so I'll say this as I begin stepping back energetically. I invite you to return the universal plug. I'll do the same. If you wonder what that is, or you'd like a deeper awareness of that, when we're done, you can look in the description for additional resources. And I'm going to put a web link up on the screen that you can type into your computer to receive the audio of this video. I think I'm going to break it into different segments so you can listen to each part on its own. And then there are additional resources that will come with that as well. Just follow the link and put your name and email address in, and those will be delivered to your inbox so that you can begin exploring at a deeper level. It's such an honor to sit with you, to sit and be in what is actually real. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share the gifts that God expresses through me with you. Whatever inspired you to watch this video in the first place, whatever may be going on in your life or in your body, in your mental or physical health, or in the world at large, this place within you, this profoundly grounded and resonant expression of who you really are, is always available, no matter what else is going on. And the byproducts of being in this space are extraordinary. I invite you to continue exploring. I'm grateful we're connected in this way. Follow the link. When you're ready, you can open your eyes slowly. There's a link on the screen you can follow. I'm not going to even try to get my mind to a place where I can say the link out loud. Just look on the screen. You'll see it. It'll be here for a little bit. If this video, can't talk much, if this video resonates with you, please do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, you can subscribe. Just click my logo in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and subscribe. The bell to be notified. I invite you to connect more on my website, links below. Most importantly, if you're going to do one thing, follow the link on the screen here. Share your name and email address. Click submit. I'll send you the audios for this video and additional healing resources for free to support you in having a deeper experience of who you are, in raising your frequency and restoring your energy so that you can experience who you really are. Until we're together again very soon. Peace.